Welcome to the Ascension Stargate podcast series, where we discuss the aspects of human consciousness, spirituality, metaphysics and philosophy, energy, extraterrestrial life, science, biology, and the alchemy of higher states of beingness, all from a heart-centered perspective. I am your host and guide, Glenn Mate, and let's begin our journey. Well, welcome to another exciting episode of the Ascension Stargate podcast series, and we have another phenomenal returning guest. This is one of my favorite guests because we've had so many experiences. We've been working together almost 10 years already. Started out as a client and learned so much from this individual, and it has opened my world, opened my perspective, opened my life in so many ways. Let me introduce to you Dr. Loren Cielo. Dr. Loren Cielo is a clairvoyant healer and teacher. He is the creator of Golden Rose Psychic Services. His internet platform supports clients and students around the globe. As a former engineer turned psychic, Loren's work closes the gap between spirituality and metaphysics in fun and often unusual ways. Dr. Cielo, welcome to the show again. Thank you for being here. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Oh my gosh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Glenn. And congratulations on all of your successes too, brother.
Thank you so much. You know, we're going to jump right in.
Yeah.
You know, Dr. Cielo has some great perspectives, some great knowledge. And as an engineer, this is how we just seem to, get along so very well, because I have this mechanical mind, and it's always like, well, how do we do things? How do we do this? And what's the processes that's we're oriented in all the time? And I think that's probably why we get along so well, and it's so exciting.
Yeah.
So, our world is just changing second by second by second these days, and time seems to be speeding up, so to speak.
Yes.
If you haven't awakened yet, you're probably going to awaken really soon. And it's so important to have a guide. Someone can help you move through the process, because there's so much that is happening at once. We need to know what's true and what isn't true, right? Because there's just so much information that's being kind of thrown upon us. And we have to kind of sort through and figure out what really resonates with us. Yeah. And, one of the big questions today is, where is truth found in this process of awakening and disclosure? And how do we truly know it? So I'd love to hear your perspective on where we're at, and maybe some tips and tricks as we go along. And we'll just let the conversation, flow as it may.
Okay, I love the topic. I love it. When I was younger, I probably had a really good BS detector, right? Like a lot of people do. Your BS detector is defunct now. It's not going to work, right? There's just too much, like you said, coming at us. So I guess maybe I'd probably like to start with truth, because we kind of have to do a little backup and talk some metaphysics here. So part of our soul comes into our body, and I like to call that part our awareness. So it's supposed to be in the center of our head. And I always think of it as maybe the size of a golf ball. I wish it was a tennis ball, but mine's probably a golf ball. And so it comes into Loren and, uses Loren's 5 physical senses and 7 chakras to collecting data, right? And so one of the ways that probably easiest to think of is in your energy field, and I mean your body chakras and aura, you have a ton of information. And maybe it might be easiest if we thought of this little bits of information as images, okay? Because when I read people clairvoyantly, that's what they look like. They look like little pictures. So we are getting new ones shoved into our space daily, weekly, millisecond to millisecond, right? And so to really know what our truth is, right? So we might think of it this way. We want those little teeny images that are in our field to be from our higher self, maybe from our Akashic records in past lives, right? So it's this constant releasing of what isn't your information, and we might call that your truth.
Mhm.
Your own information is your truth. And I don't think there's one truth. I don't think there's one universal truth out there. Maybe a good example is, finish this sentence. The global pandemic for me was, right? Nobody's going to answer that the same. Some of us had, great experiences. We grew so much, and others, worst case scenario, we know what happened, right? So I think it's like pretty much a daily thing to attempt to release what isn't your information and pull in what is yours. Now, so that's kind of the metaphysics behind it, right? What I love about the topic of this show is that you put awakening and disclosure together
Mhm.
because they're the same thing. They absolutely are. And, I've read in readings what people used to call UFOs, right? And I think there are a bunch of different things. But for sure, um, the higher frequency that, our planet is moving into as it's going through space, um, disclosure is part of that new place in space. So there's no way to separate your own personal awakening from disclosure. And I think the more people that wake up, the sooner the disclosure happens.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And we're so on the precipice of that. There are those who have been working at it probably since the late 60s, early 70s. Then there was another rendition that probably happened somewhere between mid 80s to late 80s, early 90s. And then another, as soon as we hit the 2000s, it just kept accelerating. So it's snowballing. And now we're on the big explosion. There's
Yeah.
now enough generations of this awakening where I would like to say that we've began to fill out the circumference of the collective consciousness,
Right.
and that
Absolutely.
more people are getting into this.
Yeah. And more people have a higher vibration when considering disclosure. I remember when I was little, I was terrified, like if there were, outer space aliens, I grew up in the 60s, so we had all the B movies, right? But, certainly now, I mean, I'm like, yeah, I want to interact. I want to see their perspective. I want to see how they get here. That and how they leave. That's what I want to know. I want to know the hard science. How you do that?
Right.
Yeah. But
Plasma.
it is so exciting, exciting times.
Yeah. And we keep moving into this disclosure. And I'd like to say that if we hold our breath and we're going to say the government's going to give us the information that we need, we're going to be blue in the face pretty quick.
Yes. Yeah.
But as you said earlier, which is so important, and I kind of seeded this way, and you picked right up on it,
I fell
is
into your trap.
right. Awakening and disclosure are very, very close in their actual definitions, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think I was having part of this conversation with you earlier. Telepathic channels to telepathic channels, because that what you said about the government I think you said that to me earlier, and I absolutely agreed with you. Like, no way. And as we were having that telepathic conversation, one of the things that I remember, I don't know whether you said it or I said it, but nobody would trust them anyway.
Hmm.
And that's not an accident, right? Yeah, talk about truth, Right. Yeah. So it can't come through our government. No, it can't because nobody's going to believe anything, you know. Yeah.
Right. We've lost faith in it because it's been so hidden and so miscommunicated, misconstrued, and even our government in certain factions have come out and say, yes, we gave you disinformation purposefully
Yes.
to lead
Absolutely.
you off the beaten path of the trail of what the truth really was. So now believe us.
Yeah, exactly. And Glenn, it's um the reason that the two are so connected is I alluded to it when I was younger, right? My frequency wasn't high, right? So I would have freaked out. But as we spiritually develop, right, as we, release everybody else's information and pull our true soul's information in, it's not scary anymore, right? So, in other words, the reason supposedly the government wasn't telling us because we'd all freak out. Well, a lot of us aren't going to freak out.
Right. Some of us are like open arms, like, please come into my field.
Exactly.
Let me understand your perspectives. Let me understand what your life as someone who has not been on this planet before is actually like. What do
Right.
you experience? And how can we learn in some type of new symbiotic relationship where we're both feeding into our information stream where they're learning about us and we're learning about them
Yeah.
and it
It's
comes
a
from
good,
within.
yeah,
Right?
absolutely. It is so exciting. I know it's a double-edged sword, just like the pandemic was. If you focus on low vibrating stuff, you feel horrible, right? Focus on things like this show, you feel fantastic.
Absolutely. And, in order to raise our vibrations, just as you mentioned before, it's not always that I've got to gain something, I've got to get this knowledge. But if we allow to release the things that don't serve a purpose in our life anymore, it opens the door for things to come in that we really need.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you and I are poster children of that process, right? Yep, the more spiritually connected that we are, the more we devote our lives to this, the more the rest of our life just unfolds in amazing ways. I don't even set goals anymore, Glenn, because my higher self wants to do things that I didn't even know existed. So I'm just trying to match that. Like whatever's coming next, just match me to that, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that we don't have intentions to continue to better ourselves because that is completely false. But it's being in the stream of consciousness that I'm always going to have something good in front of me, right? And that
Yeah,
comes into our belief systems on what we believe is possible.
exactly. Yeah. And I would say I can't think of too much that's not possible. If we can conceive of something, I always felt this, things like, well, disclosure, things like levitation or teleportation, right? As soon as the Homo sapien names it, once it has that concept and it names it, it's either here or it's on the way.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I talked to my main guide. He's got a funny name, Ankh Ayaya. And I don't know, I have a lot of time on my hands. So I bother him with silly questions. And I said, why are Homo sapiens clairvoyant? I mean, what in the heck could be the purpose of being able to see things in your mind's eye, which is basically what clairvoyance is? And he really surprised me, but it's so true. He goes, so you can create what you've never seen before. I was like, what? I mean, such a simple answer, but oh my gosh, and yeah, so like instantly I thought of Egypt and the first person that had a pyramid in their mind's eye and said, okay, we're going to build it this way. Never saw a pyramid before, right? It's so amazing.
Right. If I only take this angle, let's see, 51.84. Yeah, I like that number. And let me build it 770 qubits.
Right.
And I'm going to use these materials.
I know. I know.
Yeah, I like
So
that.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think anything that we have a name for that's a concept is possible. That's what I feel like. I did a workshop recently called "Anything is Possible." So of course, what makes that so interesting is what are we going to conceive of next?
Mm.
Like yeah, and the thing about disclosure, like when you think about our, database of knowledge, right, that the human has, of course we know it's tripling, every I think a couple hours now. I saw a statistic on the internet. It's crazy. So when you think about, everything that we know, don't you think disclosure is the most interesting? And we have the least data. We want more data, right? Like
Right.
maybe things in the ocean at the deepest part, maybe we don't know about that as much. But I mean, certainly our quantum physics and our astronomy, oh my gosh, it's crazy how much we know. So it is very enticing, that's for
Right.
sure.
You know, and there's so much we don't know about our own planet, right?
Yeah,
Mother Gaia, we're still learning about things with ground penetrating radar, LIDAR. We're
yeah,
learning more about the ground that we've been on for centuries, and we're still learning, and we still haven't even gotten to the oceans yet.
I know, I know. To kind of put it into perspective, I recently my Echo, I don't want to say her name because she'll start talking. My Echo, I have a little routine where I get this day in history when I get up in the morning and say good morning to it, right? And it was about a year ago where it was this day in history. I think it was, I might get the date wrong. I think it was like 1901 or 1902, somewhere in the early 1900s, where oil was discovered in Texas. And before that, it had all been coal, right? So that's what in the whole world, right? So once oil was struck, I thought, oh my gosh, it's only taken 125 years. 125 years to go from that to what we have now. Where Homo sapiens been on this planet for, one of the workshops I do for my advanced clairvoyant students, I have them look at important dates. Yeah, but I don't tell them what it is, right? I
Mhm.
say, look at the energy of, 100,000 years ago, right? Well, I know what they are because I researched it. So when I first started doing it, 100,000 years ago was when Homo sapien started. Now it's 300,000 years because we've learned so much just in the, maybe 15 years that I've been teaching that. So we go back 300,000 years. But in the last 125, I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, when you put it in context, when you said things are speeding up, oh my God, you could say that times a billion and it still would be an understatement.
Right. It's amazing because what is our next few years going to look like? Right? So we're going through this process of awakening, and the chaos is brewing. It's brewing. It's like the volcano, and literally volcanoes are
Yeah,
are erupting
yeah,
because there's so much change. There's change within Mother Gaia. There's change on the surface with humanity. You know, the next couple of years, I think, are going to be just explosions of things where everything has either exceeded its value, right? Certain things will just no longer be of any value. And it gives us the opportunity to be in that creative sense again. We need to recreate. How are we going to live, right? And one of the main, I would say, concerns with people today is artificial intelligence, right? And that seems that, it's interwoven in disclosure, it's interwoven into our awakening because it has to do with our consciousness. It is certain reflections of our consciousness, whether it be polarized, good or bad, light or
Sure.
dark. All of this is coming to a head where we have to start to choose and put a stake in the ground and say, this is the direction that we're going to head now. We need to
Yeah.
be, we need to forget what the past was, and we need to create so we can live in a prosperous new environment.
Yeah. New Earth. New Earth. Yep. I agree. And I think probably, when you told me what the topic was, um, I personally feel, and I'm not telling anybody else how they should feel, but for me, the time to try to change anything out there is over. It's done. The dominoes are just like you said, the dominoes are going, right? Whether I'm donating money to a cause, whether I'm voting certain ways, whether I'm, it doesn't matter. The only thing that I can do to prepare for this cascade of change is from the outer layer of my aura in. It's
Mm.
the only thing I can do.
And what a perfect segue because we need to learn on how do we get into these inner layers of who we are, these things, these ethereal things that we can't see. We know they're there, right? But how do we access all of this information that's out here?
Yeah,
What are your best suggestions or
sure.
tools or classes or things that we can do to start to access all of these layers?
Yeah. Well, I think for one thing is to become aware of your space, right? When I was younger, had so much stress and anxiety that I was never in my body. I was floating out in front of Lauren's face, right? Because Lauren was just so revving so high. That's one reason why I did athletics, right? It calmed the animal down. So for me, and I think you too, um, I needed logical things, right? Not, you know, kneel on rice facing Mecca on a full moon. I mean, like, well, what does that do? You
Right.
know? So I was so blessed that about 20 years ago, I stumbled onto the technique I use to read people and to teach people. And of course, I'm teaching it much different than the way it was taught to me, very much with that slant of logic, right? I prefer metaphysics over spirituality because I remember when I'm reading someone, colors are energies that have names, right? So for me, when I see a lot of purple in somebody's space, that purple tells me that it's spiritual energy. And I remember again talking to Ankiyaya when I first started reading, and I'm like, well, what's spirituality? I mean, what do I add and subtract to get to spiritual? Right. So I had to come up with a working definition, and I won't leave you all hanging. I'll tell you. To me, spirituality means you're connected to your guides and angels, you're connected to your higher self soul, you're connected to whatever you think the highest energy is, whether you think it's a being or a matrix or whatever, a computer running somewhere, whatever you think it is. And that means while you're walking around the planet, you're tapping into those three sources. Now, once I got that definition, I'm like, oh, okay, I understand now. But as far as the metaphysics part of it, one reason I love the term metaphysics is because you can define that word as meta meaning beyond. So it really means beyond the physics. And as we know, our quantum physicists are getting super smart, super fast. So really the field of metaphysics is shrinking because they're going so far out.
Yes.
So this is the model that I've used. And so far, I call them energetic experiments, where I try to test my thesis, right? So far it's worked. And when it doesn't work, I asked Ankiyaya, my main guide, and he usually sorts me out. So I mentioned that um, energy and information are the only two things that there are in this reality. And I know that because I read this reality clairvoyantly. So I only see color, or I see an image, or I see a colored image. And when I started to realize that, I'm like, well, that's all anybody can see with these things, not this, right? So if we were to take that model, we could say that our body is made up of energy and information. If I were to look at you clairvoyantly, the energy would be a color and the information would be little images. Your chakras, right, are full of energy and information as well as your aura. So I have tools that work for me, and they seem to work for my clairvoyant students. That tools that allow you to control the energy and information in your body chakras and aura. Now, again, I'm not perfect. Like, for example, my intention is not to talk to you telepathically before we do the show. But I remember so distinctly, I was putting my gym bag in my truck and we're having this conversation, right? So, I mean, I try to stay right here, right now, right here, Loren. Don't wander off. Well, I wandered and I wandered into you, right? So I'm not saying that I'm perfect at this. No, right? But it gives me a working model. So, um, I teach 6 fundamental tools that help control the energy and information in your body chakras and aura. The last tool is some protection to keep out other people's energy and other people's information. The little pictures in my field, I want them right from my higher self, right from I call them contracts, that it's writing for what's going to happen to me next, right? I want to pull those images right off those contracts and shove them in my space. I do it every day in meditation. And so what I'm hoping to do is like whatever today brings, I'm going to have the pump primed. Like say disclosure happens tomorrow. I'm ready, right? Climate change happens in my area, right? I'm ready, right? Being asked to be on your show, I'm ready, right? I'm doing the best I can to align to what my higher self is creating for me. So I teach a 6-month live clairvoyant program. At the time that we're recording this, program just started. So they start every January and every July. And but I've recorded them all, so you can do downloads if you really want to get in there, right? And one of the things that I had this weird thing at Golden Rose, right? When I first started teaching, live, I would see the person in body, right? And they'd say, hey, I heard you got trained. You weren't like a natural born psychic. Well, we all are. But I said, yes, that's true. I went to a psychic institute. And they're like, well, can you teach me? And I said, sure. So I'd say, okay, I'm having a class at this place at this time, and this is how much it cost. And I would be so excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got a student. And then they'd say, oh, I'm not available at that place. I'm not available at that time. And I don't have that money. So over the last 20 years, my goal was to remove those 3 obstacles. So the internet really helped because a lot of my students aren't even in the same country I am. They're certainly not in the same time zone, right? So after the live class, everything is uploaded into a learning management system. The audio, the notes I'm teaching from, so you can teach it too. Hope you teach it to somebody. And then the supplemental meditations. So as far as the money thing, so I finally figured out maybe 6 years ago, sometimes I'm so slow on the uptake, to set up subscriptions, right, that fit your budget, right? I'm blessed that I have enough cash flow that I can do that. Thank you, higher self, right? So if you decide to download the classes, right, they're all recorded. Granted, I recorded them a long time ago. And then you decide the next class comes up and you want to join it. Whatever you spend on those downloads is completely subtracted from the tuition And if you're either have paid in full or you're still on a payment plan, you can retake the course as many times as you want. I've had some people take it 5 times. And every time they take it, Glenn, they're like, did you say that in the other classes? I didn't hear you say that. And either they went unconscious and checked out for a minute, or I just learned it. So I couldn't have told it to you before. So even if you don't want to be psychic, you don't want to do readings, right? Those 6 fundamental tools that I was speaking of will change your life. And
Hmm.
Glenn, I'll give you a link where your audience can download those 6 tools for free, absolutely
Awesome.
free. Take it. If I wouldn't have left engineering to be a psychic, I would have used those 6 tools all the time because the animal I live in is finally calm enough for me to get in it and stay in it,
Yeah.
except for when I travel to talk to you.
You know, one of the important things that you said is this is about building awareness. And even if you don't want to do readings, even if you don't want to have clients or people coming into your life, these skills are invaluable because you can say, all right, higher self, where did I leave my keys?
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
these are tools for everyday life. And Homo sapien was supposed to be psychic. We are supposed to have these tools. And like you've mentioned before, how we have this telepathic conversation. Well, in the future, that's how we're going to be talking.
Yeah.
And what's even more interesting is there's no secrets behind telepathy.
Yeah.
You show up and this is who I am. Here I am in my entirety. And you have the opportunity to see who I really am. And that itself is a gift because there's no need to hide behind words or things or a cell phone or social media. We will be able to connect on such a profound level that our relationships will grow stronger and the ones that aren't serving will just not be present in our
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And everybody does it already. They just don't realize they
life.
do it. Right. So that's one of the things I find so interesting about training people to notice the information they're picking up psychically, because that's all I do. I mean, I have little tools that help you do it, right? Metaphors to wrap your brain around what you're reading. For example, if I wanted to read the energy in your body chakras and aura, this is what I tell my students. I say, okay, out in front of you, about arm's length away, I want you to draw a gingerbread cookie, 2 arms, a head, and 2 legs. Now, down the middle of it, I want you to put 7 gumdrops in the locations where the chakras are. And then I want you to draw 7 ovals that progressively get bigger around the body. That's your energy field. So if I want to look at it, my healing master paints it. So if I want to see what color your heart chakra, it's yellow, by the way, I just look at the gumdrop in the middle and it turns, I mean, come on. You know, I mean, children could do this better than we can.
Hmm.
You know, like that's one of the things that my students have to get over the hump of what is this supposed to be like? Am I doing it right? And I tell them, when you were 3 years old, I could have said to you, what color's my aura? And you'd say green right away. And off you'd go,
Boom,
you know,
right there.
yep. So it really is so incredibly easy once you start to realize. I remember the first thing that I ever read, it was the fourth layer of someone's aura. And um, I had to say it out loud in front of my teacher, right? And so I did. And she said, great job. And I was like, that's reading? Oh my God. That's it? Oh, I could do this all day. I thought it was something else, like everybody, right? Yeah, so it's not, yeah, everybody can do it because remember, the reason we're clairvoyant is because we create things we've never seen before. But we can use that very same muscle. And here's a good exercise that people can try. So you could close your eyes, and it's best if you move your awareness into the center of your head. So let's kind of play with that. Again, don't do this if you're driving. So just go ahead and close your eyes. and set your intention that your awareness is in the center of your head. Now, you may not know it because maybe it's always there, right? So you're like, I don't even know what you're talking about, Loren. Well, try this. I want you to start to think about your favorite nature place. Maybe it's a forest that you have gone to. Maybe it's a beach. So go ahead and I want you to really focus on some beautiful place that you have gone or would like to go. And I want you to notice, is there a breeze blowing? Are your feet in water? Notice what your feet feel like. Okay, now I want you to move right back into the center of your head. So if you felt movement, you were there, right? So when when my teacher first said move into the center of your head, I was like, holy crap, I moved. What part is that of me? Why didn't anybody tell me about this before? So it really, and I'm so grateful for the creators of the technique, that got me started. And again, I've tweaked it a little bit, but I'm so grateful because I feel like it's logical, right? So, for example, when I was talking about my students, retaking the course and saying, I never heard you say that before. And I use the word unconscious. Either they went unconscious. So let's talk about that. It's super easy. So when your awareness is in the center of your head, and that's part of your higher self, okay, it's sitting in there. So it can use your five senses, your five physical senses, and all of the information coming into your chakras, right? But if it drifts away over to a beach, it can't use your ears. So it doesn't hear anything. Have you ever been like maybe at church, right? Or in a class and you're listening to the droning of the person talking, and then all of a sudden you snap back and you're like, what I missed something that you said. Well, that's why you left your ears. You couldn't hear. Now, things like that I find so incredibly interesting, right? How do I ride in this animal, to get peak performance out of this model that I'm in? It's fascinating. So, yeah, energetic experiments is what I call them.
Mm. And that just ties right back into awareness and disclosure, right? Because our abilities to cultivate further psychic abilities is all about awareness. And the disclosure of information isn't necessarily out here. It's in here, it's in here, it's in
Yes.
here, it's in here, it's in
Yes.
here. We're looking at all of that information. So the disclosure is really coming from within us because
Yes.
we're becoming more aware, more attuned to the things that necessarily were insignificant, or
Abs-
maybe what we were told were insignificant or imaginary. But we want you to practice learning these tables, and we want you to learn your times, and we want you to learn the correct English, and we want you to be able to create and operate this lovely piece of machinery so you could make lots of widgets for us.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Oh my gosh. And then as we start to delve inside, that's what I mean. I mean, I started my training at 44, and I'm like living in a completely different reality now that I understand what I understand about this thing that I'm riding around the planet. I mean, oh my gosh, it's like um, a completely different reality.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I mean, sometimes I think back at the old me and I don't even recognize that person. And I kind of feel sorry for that person.
Right. What was that person, and whoever
Oh,
saw anything in that person? Because this person here is so much different,
yes.
and it started
Yeah,
off with awareness.
absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And as we were talking about the flow of information in and out of our field, right? I'll tell you the best source for hot off the press information. It's your Akashic records,
Mm-hmm.
because everyone on the astral has to be in agreement for something to happen here if it involves them. So
Mm-hmm.
if we talk about the pandemic, every single soul who was either incarnate or was coming to be born had to be in agreement. Had to be in agreement, right? It's not a democracy over there,
Right.
right? And the higher selves that weren't in agreement, they just quit playing the game, right? They just pulled their awareness out of the body and the body went back into the earth and they're done, right?
Hmm.
So this is the way I like to describe it. The Akashic records are a chronicle of everything that's happened since the Big Bang. So it's the whole universe, right? So E has always equaled MC squared. Always. It's one of the underpinning equations of this reality. But we didn't pull it out of the records until Einstein did in the late 40s, early
Right.
50s, I think it was late 40s. It's always been in the record. But the group agreement here on Earth, because it's a double-edged sword, once you know E equals MC squared, right? As soon as all the souls that were here or going to come here said, okay, we can we can disclose that. We can have that disclosure. So this is the same exact thing. Same
Yeah.
exact.
It's beautiful. And it's constantly changing and growing for us, if we're open to it. And we kind of have to, like as you said before, we need to let go of some of the things that we learned, that we studied hard, those hard and fast facts that we thought were, this is the only way it should be done. This is, scholars have taught us this for eons. These people have, degrees that are, 4 and 5 layers deep. And we realize that that's not necessarily the truth.
Yeah,
Right. The
exactly.
truth is always going to be residing in these layers, right? No matter what the
Absolutely.
external is saying, it's these layers that
Yes.
will be telling
And
the truth.
and this teaching says that when you're in the center of your head, all your answers are within,
Mhm.
because you can access them. You're actually sitting in the center of your body's head, and that awareness is like a squirrel, right? If you've got a bit of information and there's a lot of energy on it, it's really bright, and your awareness goes, "What?" And it looks at it, right? So when I started to realize all of this, right, and to put it in logical terms, I'm like, okay, so if I'm having a thought I don't like, it's because there's a piece of information in my space that I don't like and I want to remove it. And I'll give you a tip on how to do that. Super easy. So that my business is called Golden Rose Psychic Services because the technique I use has, you can see the big rose behind me. It's all about roses as a metaphor for things. So it's called an exploding rose. And you imagine it, it's made of energy, right? And let's say I'm thinking about something that maybe it's a memory that causes me pain. Maybe it's something happening in current events. Maybe I'm remembering who I used to be and feeling sorry for myself, right? Go, that poor guy, he's so lost. So you imagine a rose and you give it a sticky property and you just let it go through wherever it wants to and catch up all of those pictures, because that's why you have thoughts. Your awareness is reading the information. That's why you have a thought. Catch it up and then you push it out of your aura and you explode it. So the rose is like a little vehicle. I'll give you a good example. When I was first being trained, remember I told you we have protections where we try to keep people's energy out. So once we have all of our own information and energy, we don't want somebody's energy to come in. So I was still an engineer and I was driving at lunch and I don't know what I was doing. I wasn't in Loren, and so I pissed off one of the drivers, right? And so he honked at me and he flipped me off, and I just, I was starting to be so sensitive to my energy. And I felt we call it an energy whack. His energy came through me because I didn't have any protections up, right? And it lit me up, is what we would say. So if we talk about it metaphysically, in my chakras, I have tons of information, and his energy came through and lit up some of that information. Now, if his energy would have lit up information in my heart chakra, the kumbaya chakra, right? I would have been, brother, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I wasn't paying attention, right? That would be how I'd react. But that's not what happened. It hit my third chakra, which is the competitive chakra. So I'm like, well, F you right back, right? So all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what my teacher was talking about. I've got his energy in my field. So made a rose. My eyes are open. I made a rose. I'm like, okay, I'm going to get his energy out. Push the rose out and explode it. Oh no, I'm still pissed. Okay, let me do another one. Again, catch it up, push it out. Nah, still, I did about six, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I'm like back to where I was before I got that energy whack. I'm like, oh my God, this works. So really the metaphysics, I think, that I'm teaching explains everything. It's not like a religion where you get to a point and finally the clergy, you keep asking questions and the clergy finally says, humans can't know that. That's only for God. No, I haven't hit that yet. I haven't hit that barrier and I keep pushing.
And I don't think we can hit that barrier, right?
No,
But, using that tool is is invaluable because think of how many times that, we are interacting, and it doesn't even have to be a human. We could hear something,
absolutely.
right? And it immediately emotionally triggers something in us. And if we are in that space of awareness, then we're like, oh, what just happened? I just heard a word, a single word, and all of a sudden I've got energy in me that I feel that nuance of frustration or anger or maybe it's fear.
Yeah. And that's the tool to remove information that's coming into your field that's not your truth. You can just create a rose with the intention of catch up anything that's not my information coming from my soul. And Glenn, a lot of times you don't even have to hear a word. You could be walking around in your pajamas in your house, and all of a sudden you're like, what? Like something is in my
Mhm.
field or someone, right? Okay, we catch my little rose.
And it's that simple though.
Yep, that's simple. It's
We don't have to
crazy.
go through this process. We don't have to light candles. We don't have to get into a meditative pose. We don't have to do
Nope,
our yoga.
nope, no.
Simple, simple tools, logical, they make sense, and they're easy to follow.
Yeah, yeah.
Dr. Cielo, we're almost at our time. And
Okay.
it's just amazing how fast it goes when we're together. So, do you have any last words for us?
Yeah,
Anything that maybe Uncle Yaya is knocking at the door and saying, just say this.
yeah. Well, I wasn't surprised when you came to me with this topic because it's been so up in my readings with my clients. And I've just been harping on my students. You must meditate every day. You must. Make it the most important thing in your life. It's like how salt makes food taste better, right? It's the salt for your life, right? So we're working on a mobile app that will push about a 20-minute meditation at you every single day on all different topics. It launches in fall of this year. So you know, the changes are going to happen anyway. We're past the point of being able to control anything as individuals, as a country, it's gone. It's over. We're just waiting to see what happens next. So, gosh, Anki Yaya always says, Lauren, do you want the brick or do you want the feather? I'm like, dude, I want the feather, right? I'm going to meditate every day. That is the most important thing in my life is to align myself, right? So, I know you're going to give them some links. So I did send you that link to go over, get on the wait list for that mobile app. I'm designing it myself, Glenn. It's so fun. God, love it. So that would be it. You want the brick or you want the feather?
Right. And one last epiphany on meditation. everybody can meditate. So the people that say that they can't just don't realize when they're meditating, because
That's
it
true.
could be a piece of music, it could be nature, it could be grounding with your shoes off and just touching Mother Earth.
Yeah.
It could be you just got lost in thought. You got lost in a movie. You got lost somewhere. And all of a sudden you look at your watch and like, oh, where did the last 10 minutes just zip off to?
Right. Right.
You were in some type of meditative state of mind. Your brainwave elevated from that high beta that we use all every day to somewhere in that alpha gamma or alpha theta range. And, we're human beings. And as we collectively move forward, that gives the permission slip for everybody on this planet to now step into that if they so desire. And it's the way of the world because we as human beings are psychic. We were told that we weren't. We were told that there were just these special people that need to be put on a pedestal, and those pedestals don't exist. We all have the abilities to do this. So it doesn't matter if you're in New Delhi, India, or in your Scranton, Pennsylvania, or you're in Shasta, California, or Waco, Texas. It doesn't matter. Right?
I agree.
So again, Dr. Cielo, I am just so grateful to have you in my life, that you've shared some of your wisdom, insights, and experience with the world again. And I hope with all of my heart that this reaches anybody who needs it in the moment, whether it be tomorrow or another 10 years. Thank you from my heart to yours for spending some time with me. It means the world to me to have these conversations that are open, honest, and insightful. So thank you for joining on another Ascension Stargate podcast series, and I can't wait to see you soon. Viewers, check the write-up, check the links. There's all of Dr. Cielo's information. If you'd like to learn from a class, be part of this new app that's coming, or maybe you'd like to have a one-on-one session with Dr. Cielo, you'll find it right in the write-ups. Thank you, and we'll see you really soon.